That night felt heavier than usual, the sky dim, the air pressing down like it carried a warning. The clock on my dashboard glowed 9:14 p.m. as I pulled into the King Cullen parking lot. It was almost closing time, but the kids had been begging for snacks all day, and the pantry was empty. For once I was alone. My husband was home with the kids, 10, 7, and 3, and for the first time in weeks, the house wasn't pulling at me from every direction. Grocery shopping alone at night felt like freedom. The lot was nearly empty, only a handful of cars beneath the flickering orange lamps. The store's glass doors opened with a metallic sigh. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old produce, familiar, yet hollow when no music played overhead. I grabbed a cart and started moving through the aisles, the wheels squeaking over the polished tile. The store felt too quiet, even the hum of the coolers seemed loud. That's when I felt it, a soft tap on my shoulder. I turned sharply, heart jumping. A man stood there. Average height, tan skin, a red zip-up hoodie half open over a black tee. A baseball cap hid his eyes in shadow. "Sorry," he said quickly, his voice flat, almost rehearsed. "Didn't mean to scare you. I was looking everywhere for those chips in your cart. You mind telling me where you found them?" I blinked, then smiled politely and pointed. "Aisle 6, halfway down." He frowned. "Checked there already?" "Didn't see him." Against the small voice in my head whispering "don't," I offered to show him. He followed close, too close, his shoes squeaking just behind mine. I could smell his breath, a mix of cigarettes and something sour. I showed him the shelf, grabbed a bag and held it out. "Here." He smiled wider than necessary. "Thanks. You're a lifesaver." Then casually, "You know these are the only ones that don't use canola oil. Makes all the difference." I nodded, inching back. He kept talking. Pointless chatter about ingredients, preservatives, nonsense meant to fill space. Then he paused mid-sentence, tilted his head slightly and said in a low, strange tone, "Gosh, you're pretty." My skin prickled. I forced a weak laugh, said, "Thanks, I should finish up before they close," and turned away. But the feeling didn't leave. The air felt colder now, heavier. I could sense him somewhere behind me, watching. I tried to focus on my list, cereal, juice boxes, detergent, but every time I turned a corner, I glimpsed that red hoodie again. Sometimes he was at the far end of the aisle, pretending to read a label. Other times he drifted past the cross aisle slowly, head turning just enough for me to catch it. No words now. Just that awful presence circling me. The store grew emptier by the minute. Only the hum of refrigerators and my cart's uneven wheel breaking the silence. My heartbeat felt loud enough to echo. At checkout, my hands shook slightly as I lifted items onto the belt. The cashier smiled, unaware. And then, he stepped in line right behind me. 2 items in his hands. His breathing faint but steady. I didn't look up. Couldn't. I felt the heat of his stare through the back of my neck, that electric awareness that every movement I made was being watched. When I finished, I grabbed my bags quickly. Then his voice, smooth and too soft. "Have a good night, ma'am?" I didn't answer. The automatic doors slid open and the cold night hit me like a wall. The parking lot was nearly black except for one flickering light. My heels clicked too loudly on the asphalt as I loaded the groceries. Then I saw him again. Across the lot, sitting inside a dented gray Honda. No headlights. No engine running. Just there, staring straight ahead. I shut the trunk, climbed into my car, locked the doors and started the engine. My hands trembled on the wheel. As I backed out, the Honda didn't move. Relief trickled in, until I turned onto my street. A glance in the mirror froze my blood. Headlights off, a car crept several houses behind me, the same dull shape, the same silent glide. I pulled into the driveway too fast and ran inside, groceries still in the car. "Mark!" I shouted. My husband came down the stairs instantly. "Someone followed me," I said breathlessly. "From the store. A man." He didn't ask questions. He grabbed the bat from under the bed and ran outside. I stood frozen by the window, staring into the street's dim glow. But the car was gone. We told ourselves it was over, that I was just spooked. But that kind of fear doesn't fade. It lingers, quiet and constant. A week later, just after midnight, A noise woke me, a faint scrape against the side fence, then the metallic rattle of a latch. My husband sat up instantly. "Stay here," he whispered. He went to the window, lifted it slowly and peered out. Then his voice, barely a breath, "Someone's there." Below the window, a man was crouched by the gate, tugging at the lock. When he heard the window slide open, he looked up. For a heartbeat, the porch light hit his face. The same tan skin, the same black cap, the same red hoodie. He bolted. My husband chased him barefoot into the yard, shouting. A car door slammed, an engine roared, and taillights vanished into the dark. The police came minutes later, lights flashing blue across our house. They took my statement, searched the block, found nothing. He never came back. But fear has a way of staying even when danger leaves. Sometimes, when I'm alone in a grocery aisle late at night, I feel it again, that quiet pull at the back of my neck, that weight of unseen eyes. And I remember his voice, soft and polite, right before the doors closed behind me. "Have a good night, ma'am." When you work in retail, night shifts always sound easier than they really are. No crowds. No noise. Just quiet shelves and humming lights. That's what I told myself when my supervisor at Waldbaum's grocery store put me down for my first overnight shift. I was 20, a college student trying to pay rent. I thought I'd just stock a few aisles, drink some coffee, and get through it. I clocked in just after midnight. Half the lights were off to save electricity, and the aisles looked longer in the dim glow. There was something hollow about the silence, the kind that makes your footsteps sound too loud. There were still a few customers finishing up. Some weird people always shop after midnight, the quiet kind who stare too long at soup cans. By 1:30 they were gone. Now it was just me, the aisles, and that faint buzz from the fluorescent tubes overhead. I was told there would be a few other night employees, stockers, maybe a night manager, but I hadn't seen anyone yet. As I scanned a few items at the register just to pass the time, a shadow moved across the far end of the store. A man in khakis and a collared shirt walked toward me. He had a ring of keys hanging from his belt and a small black backpack in his hand. He was bald, mid-40s maybe. "Hey," I said. "Are you the night manager?" He smiled faintly. "First night?" he asked. "Yeah." He nodded. "Good. We need someone to organize the pallets in the back. I'll watch the front." It sounded reasonable. He spoke with quiet confidence, that corporate kind of calm. I followed his instruction and started walking toward the back warehouse. But as I glanced back over my shoulder, I saw him reaching toward the main door control panel. His hand lingered on a switch and then, a soft metallic click. The sound of the front doors locking. The warehouse was colder than the rest of the store. The air smelled like cardboard and detergent. A tall man wearing a Waldbaum's manager vest was stacking boxes. He looked up as I walked in. "Hey," he said. "You must be the new guy." "I'm Rob, night manager." I froze. "I thought I just talked to the manager out front," I said. Rob's brow furrowed. "Who?" I described the bald guy, the keys, the backpack. His expression changed instantly, his jaw tensed. "There's no one else here tonight," he said. That's when the lights went out. Not a flicker, a total blackout. The humming stopped. The sound of the refrigerators died. For a few seconds, the store was pitch black except for the faint, bluish light leaking from the dairy coolers out front. Rob grabbed his flashlight. "Stay here," he said. "Don't move." I listened as his footsteps faded down the warehouse corridor, then silence. I sat on a pallet of boxed cereal, trying to calm the pounding in my chest. The store was dead quiet again, except for something faint. A door creaking open on the far side of the warehouse. The sound was slow, deliberate. Then a voice. Oh, too calm. "Hey kid, you in here?" My blood turned cold. It wasn't Rob's voice. I crouched behind a stack of boxes, heart hammering. The footsteps grew closer, echoing softly through the concrete. He was dragging something, keys maybe, they jingled faintly. I held my breath. The voice came again, closer now. "Come on out. Don't make me look for you." Every instinct screamed run. I moved quietly toward the second exit, a smaller side door that led back to the aisles. The floor creaked once beneath my shoe. The footsteps stopped. And then, a soft laugh. "You shouldn't be here after hours," he whispered. I burst through the warehouse door into the dark store. My shoes squeaked on the tile. At the far end, Rob appeared with a flashlight, his face pale. "What happened?" he hissed. I pointed behind me, trembling. "Someone's in there." He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the emergency lever by the main door, flipped it, and the doors unlocked with a click. "Out," he whispered. "Now." We stepped outside into the freezing air. He pulled out his phone immediately, calling the police. I heard every word. "There's an intruder. Mel. Inside the walled bounds." He locked the doors and cut the power. When the cops arrived, they surrounded the building and went inside. For 10 minutes, I sat on the curb, shivering, staring at the empty aisles glowing faintly under the emergency lights. When they finally came out, their faces told me everything. They hadn't found him. No one had left through the back exit. No broken locks. No signs of forced entry. It didn't make sense. The next day, my supervisor showed me the security footage. The cameras caught everything. The bald man entering through the front, wandering the aisles, checking corners like he was memorizing them. Then he locked the doors. The lights went out. The next frame, empty. He was gone. Just gone. And then, a full minute later, the back warehouse camera flickered on again, and showed me walking in. The timestamps didn't match. The man had vanished before I even entered the store. They never identified him. No name, no record, nothing. I quit overnight shifts after that. But sometimes when I pass the store on my way home, I catch myself glancing through the glass doors. The lights are always dim after midnight. And sometimes, when the reflection hits just right, I swear I see someone standing inside. A bald man. Holding a ring of keys. Smiling. There's something unnatural about being in a supermarket after it closes. It's not the dark or the silence, it's the emptiness. A place meant for people, stripped of them, feels wrong in a way you can't describe. I used to work the night restock shift at a supermarket called Great American. It was the biggest store in our rural town, a massive space filled with aisles that seemed endless after 10 p.m. My shift always began right as the last customer left, 10 o'clock sharp, and ran until 3 in the morning. Most nights it was just me and one other worker. Sometimes it was Terry, sometimes Carter, sometimes Alfonso. That night I was supposed to work with Terry. He was late, not unusual, so I let myself in through the back. The metal door groaned open as I entered the warehouse. The smell of cardboard, detergent, and old produce filled the air. I clocked in, grabbed the pallet jack, and began moving boxes toward the bread aisle. The building had a hum, the sound of lights, coolers, and ventilation systems overlapping in a strange kind of rhythm. After 30 minutes, the silence started to feel heavier. The kind of silence that feels like it's listening back. I realized I still hadn't seen Terry. I went to the back room where we kept our things. His locker was empty, his coat missing. But the back door, the one I had left cracked open with a stopper, was shut. That made no sense. I walked over, pushed the door. It was locked from the outside. The stopper, gone. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. Maybe he had arrived and shut it behind him? But where was he? I called his phone. He picked up almost immediately. His voice was groggy. "Hey man, I'm not coming in tonight. I'm sick." I froze. "What?" "Then who closed the door?" He coughed. "What do you mean?" I didn't answer. I hung up. Something wasn't right. The store suddenly felt too big, too quiet, and very, very wrong. I went back out to the main floor trying to shake it off. I told myself maybe the door had slipped shut on its own, though I knew I'd wedged it tightly. I started restocking the bread section, humming softly to break the silence. But the air had changed. It felt heavier, like the temperature had dropped a few degrees. Then came the noise. A clatter, something falling far away, echoing faintly through the aisles. I froze mid-motion. It wasn't a loud crash, but deliberate, a sound made to draw attention. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking slightly. No response. I walked toward the middle aisle where all the rows connected, scanning left and right. That's when I saw him. At the far end of the store, in the glow of the dairy coolers, a man walked across the opening between aisles. Slowly. Casually. Dressed entirely in black. He didn't look up, just moved past as if he hadn't seen me. But the sight of another person, a stranger, inside a locked supermarket at 2 a.m. made my blood run cold. For a few seconds I couldn't move. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Maybe a new hire I hadn't met? A night cleaner? but something in my gut said no. I called out again, louder this time, "Hey! You're not supposed to be here." No answer. I started walking down the center aisle, my footsteps echoing against the tile. I reached the end and turned left, and saw him again. He was standing halfway down another aisle, facing me directly. His posture was strange, stiff, arms slightly away from his sides, head tilted just a little too far. And then he smiled. A slow, deliberate grin that didn't touch his eyes. I opened my mouth to speak, but he stepped backward, disappearing behind the shelf. I ran toward the spot. Nothing. Empty aisle. Only the faint smell of something rotten lingered in the air. That's when I realized the sound of the coolers had stopped. The entire store had gone silent. I bolted for the exit. The automatic doors didn't open. I pushed, but they were locked. The lights above me flickered once, twice, then went dim, the store sinking into a dull yellow haze. I turned around and scanned the aisles. Far back, by the bread section, stood the man again. Half his body hidden behind a display. His head tilted, his mouth open like he was silently laughing. He lifted one hand and waved. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. I reached for my phone, fingers shaking, and dialed 911. The dispatcher's calm voice was the only sound that tethered me to reality. "There's someone inside the Great American Store," I whispered. "I'm alone. Please." A noise cut me off. Footsteps. Coming closer. Not running, just a slow, steady pace. One foot dragging slightly behind the other. "Stay on the line," the dispatcher said. But my hands were slick with sweat, the phone slippery. I ducked behind a checkout lane, crouching low. I could hear him now, breathing. Slow, deliberate, just a few feet away. Through the gap between the shelves, I saw his shoes, black, worn down, leaving faint streaks on the tile. He stopped walking. I could hear him whispering something too low to make out. Then, the sound of him licking his lips. That was enough. I stood, sprinted for the back door, slammed it open with my shoulder, and burst into the night air just as the red and blue flashes appeared at the end of the lot. The police arrived fast. Guns drawn. They entered the store while I waited outside, trembling, the cool air burning my lungs. 10 minutes later, an officer came out. They had him. A man in black, mid-30s, sunken eyes, dark circles like bruises. He didn't resist. He just stared at me, smiling. When they cuffed him and walked him past, his head turned slowly, his grin stretched unnaturally wide. And before they put him into the car, he said one thing. "I just wanted a snack." The officer later told me he'd been found wandering the aisles for hours, long before my shift began, hiding between displays, watching. He had no wallet, no phone, no ID. He was released 2 days later. They said he wasn't violent, just disturbed. I never worked another night shift again. But sometimes when I stop by that store in daylight, I swear the air still smells faintly of something rotten. And whenever I pass the bread aisle, I can still feel it, that heavy silence, that slow grin burned into my memory. Because I know what I saw. And I know that smile wasn't human. The darkness is always watching. If you want more stories that send chills down your spine, like, share and subscribe to Dark Echoes. Stay safe or don't. We'll see you next time.